Hi, I'm Andrew from Yum Paleo, and today we're going to be doing a really delicious and slightly different meal. We're going to be doing we're going to be doing duck breasts, so just something a little bit different. It's a game meat, really lean, delicious meat, and we're going to be doing that with a garlic and red pepper sauce, and we're going to serve that on a bed of mash. We're going to use parsnips this time for a parsnip mash, and we're going to serve that with a side of sautéed leeks. So really delicious, really looking forward to it. So the first thing we're going to do is we've got 4 red peppers, and what I've done is I've just halved them and de-seeded them, popped them into a roasting pan, and I've put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cloves of garlic as well. So I've got 4 halved red peppers. That makes 8. 2, 4, 6, 8. We're going and some garlic. So I'm just going to pop that in the oven for a wee while because I want to roast that off and soften it up so I can take the skins off it. So I'm going to pop that in there. Now what I have done with these duck breasts is, now you're going to want to start off by rendering off the fat, and the way you're going to do that is by putting them skin side down in the pan and cooking them for about 4 minutes and just draining that fat off. So the important thing to remember when you do that is don't throw the fat away, because it's really delicious, especially on roasted vegetables. So we'll hang on to that even if we don't use it for something today. But what I've done just to prepare them is I've trimmed off any excess skin, and I've just scored them in a bit of a crisscross pattern, and what that does is it enables the fat to come out through the skin and drain off, because there's actually quite a chewy layer of fat underneath the skin on a duck, so it's really important that we work at rendering that fat off before we cook it, otherwise they're going to be a little bit chewy. So anyway, I've got those prepared. So they're really not going to require much cooking, so I'm going to put them to one side for a moment. And what I'm going to do is, now that I've got the peppers and the garlic in the oven, I'm just going to make a start on preparing these parsnips and preparing the leeks. Now the leeks we'll saute in the pan after we've finished with the duck breasts. So the first thing we're going to want to do for these parsnips is we're going to want to get a pot, wrong drawer. So about a medium-sized pot, we're going to want to put some water in there, and we're going to want to set that on to start to boil while we're preparing our parsnips. So just a bit like that in the bottom there. Pop that over. Just check we've got the ring going underneath there. Got a good burn on that ring. And I'm just going to pop that lid back on and set that going. Right, so the trick with the trick with the duck breasts is that often you'd cook them in a pan that has a cookable handle, so you can transfer them from here straight across and into the oven. However, I actually want to use that pan, or the frying pan, for the sautéed leeks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cook the breasts on here, and then I'm going to transfer them into a cast iron dish. I won't need the lid on it, but I'll just transfer them to that cast iron dish, and I'll pop them into the oven from there. But ideally, otherwise you could use an extra pan. But if you don't have one that has an oven-friendly handle, then you can just transfer it across. It's really not a big deal. So anyway, I've got that water going for that. I'll just quickly check on those. Yeah, they're coming along all right. Okay, so anyway, let's carry on. So I've started by peeling one, so I'm just going to carry on with the others. So basically with the red pepper sauce, once those peppers are roasted, I'm going to take the skins off them, and I'm going to whiz them up with the garlic and some basil. So I've got some fresh basil leaves sitting to one side as well, and I'm going to pop those in. So it's just going to be a really tasty, really fresh kind of sauce that goes with the duck, and I'll also put a little bit of honey in it because honey is delicious. And again, it's just a natural Manuka honey, which is quite expensive, but it's reasonably easy to get from a health food shop or something like that. So, because you really want the good stuff. So just chopping these into smallish pieces because it makes them a little bit easier to cook through. Just bear in mind, parsnips, like a few other things, are a fairly dense root vegetable, so they require a fair amount of cooking to soften them up. Like so. So I'm just going to bring that pot back. That water's boiled quite quickly, so it's almost boiling. So I'm just going to throw, and that's just 4 small parsnips. So bear in mind with this, I'm cooking this for 4 people. So yeah, 4 small parsnips should be plenty of mash. It's not a major component of it. I mean, but it's just going to be a really nice accompaniment to go with that duck. So set that back on, put the lid back on. Now bear in mind with a pureed parsnip, it can sometimes be a little bit dry, so with that in mind, have some coconut milk handy in case it just needs a little bit of moisture in it just to bring that texture up, but it's not essential. It's not essential, you don't have to, but you might find sometimes that the parsnip is a little bit dry, and if it is, you've got the coconut milk there as an option. So anyway, let's just check those again. I'm just going to bring those out and give them a bit of a shake. I'm just going to have a wee look at these. Just move my knife over. See, the underside of them is blackening quite nicely, which is fine. What I'm going to do, I'm actually just going to turn these over and cook them the other side. So, might close that oven so I don't let all the heat out. And I've got that oven on, what do I have it on? About 125, 130 Fahrenheit, which is about 250 Celsius for those of you who have Celsius ovens. So they're looking really yum, and I'm just going to throw them back in. And our next thing on the menu is the sautéed leeks, and I'm going to want a clear glass bowl just to put the chopped leeks into, so I'll just move that duck out of the way for a moment. So I've rinsed these leeks, and I'm just going to cut that end part of the root off, like so, and I'm just going to slice it into slices about a 1/2 inch wide. And the key to that is that it's just going to, sort of an alternative to onion, and we're only going to want to use the white, so when we start getting too far up into the green we'll discard that. So it does seem a bit wasteful. I mean, that's the only thing that gets me with leeks, but that's the bit you want, is that bit there. So we don't want stupid amounts of it, but you know, you've got to be pretty happy with it. So slice that end off, and again about 1/2 inch. Just peel that extra layer off. Now as you get up towards the end of the lake, towards the green end, you might find the odd little bit with dirt in there. So as you find them, you're just going to want to rinse that out, because as much as you rinse your vegetables, leeks have got such tight little layers on them, and the dirt can really work their way down into them. So we've got 2 fairly large leeks actually, and we're just going to break those rings up a little bit, just with your fingers. Okay, so we're just going to probably just wait for a couple of moments or a couple of minutes while we finish off those peppers. And once we've got those peppers finished, we're going to be about ready to make everything really start to happen. So I'll see you back here in about 5 or so minutes. Just play it by ear, and then we'll be ready to make a start on things. So see you in a minute. Okay, we're back. So it's been a few minutes, and I'm just going to start by taking these out. Wasn't very graceful. And we're just going to try to pluck the skins off them. This could be interesting. So I'm just going to try and do that with a bit of a fork. You know what? I'm going to leave the skins on them because it's probably just fine to leave them on there anyway. So what I'm going to do with those is I'm going to just pop them out onto a plate and let them cool for a little bit, because I don't want to try blending them when they're so hot. So that's just going to get all of the peppers and the garlic out. I can have a fiddle with those as they cool down, but it's not as easy as it looks getting the skins off these. And to be fair, it's not the end of the world if we have them in there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set that pan, heat it up. Just put it on a really low temperature, and I'm just going to put a little bit of oil in the bottom of that just to stop the skins from sticking, and just ease that around a little bit. And while the pan is still cold, I'm just going to rinse my hands. And we're going to put these breasts in. Actually, I'm going to put a little bit of pepper on them first. Now you could add salt if you want to, but being that it's paleo, we don't really need to add the salt, so I'm just going to do it with the pepper, and I'm just going to lay those breasts skin side down. Three, 4. Now I've changed my mind about using the cast iron casserole dish. I'm actually just going to use this dish that we used for the peppers. So we're going to want these in there for 2 minutes and then start taking some of the fat off. So duck is quite oily, fatty meat, so this is just helping bring some of that delicious duck fat out. So that's been about 2 minutes. I'm just going to hold on to those breasts as we just drain some of that fat off. And then we're just going to put them on for another 2 minutes, now that we've got that little bit of extra fat off. Now I'm just going to check those parsnips, see how they're coming along. They're doing all right actually, really good. So while we're playing with that and just letting those go for another 2 minutes, this is probably almost cooled down sufficiently. Yep, I'm just going to throw those in. I'll use my tongs, but don't be scared of using your fingers in the kitchen either. So throw in your garlic. Just remember, try that on the lowest heat you can get it on. And it's just to render that fat out of them. Now I'm going to put a teaspoon of honey in here. Now the trick with honey is if you use a warm spoon it slides straight off easier, so warm your spoon before you put it in the honey. There we go. And we're going to throw in a small handful. Oh, that's been 2 minutes. Okay, so we'll just put that to one side again. And we're just going to hold on to these breasts and drain that fat off again. So here's where it gets fun. We're just going to grab that dish and we're going to sit them straight in there like so. Getting some really nice colour there from those breasts, just from scoring that and rendering that fat off. And they're going to go straight in the oven, and they're going to go in for about 5 or 7 minutes. So just going to whack it up a wee bit. Drain off the rest of that delicious duck fat. I'll save that for another time. So you can just pop that straight in your fridge actually. It's absolutely fine. So I'm just going to pop that back onto there on a low heat again. And we're just going to start sauteing those leeks. They're not going to need much at all. In fact, we could use a little bit of that. It's very naughty using the stuff because it's fat, but it's tasty, so we love it. I'm just going to add a little bit more olive oil to it, just a splash. Really won't need much. And in the interim, we'll come back to this red pepper sauce. So we've got the red peppers, garlic, teaspoon of honey, and a very small handful of basil. I'm just going to chuck that in like that. Stick the lid on it. And we're going to set this thing going. So just going to put that lid on those leeks just to steam them up a little bit. And so there we've got that done. Looks delicious. Set that to one side. Handle off those. And just going to, I just want to steam those leeks a little bit longer. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drain a little bit of that parsnip water into the leeks. Waste not, want not. So it's all yummy vegetable stock. Drain the rest of that off. And, whew, steam. Yeah, it's coming along all right. So that's a really good consistency there. I'm actually not going to bother about putting any coconut milk into it because it's going to make it too runny. So come back to this. So the key to this is just softening these up quite a bit. Turn that extra ring off. And it must be about time to bring those duck breasts out. So I'll just move that pot to one side because these will be done. Woo! Yep. Don't panic about the smoke. When you've got things on a really high temperature, they do that. And actually they're about right, they're perfect. So what I'm going to do, just with those, while we let them sit for a little bit, we're just going to put a little tint of aluminium foil on top of them, just to keep them warm as we let them rest. So remember, shiny side in, dull side out, mind your fingers, so just wrap it over the top of that dish. Just like that. And you just tint them and set them to one side. So I'll just leave them up there. And I'm just going to leave that lid off now just to bring some of that moisture out and just let it go. So, about ready to serve some of our parsnip. So I'm just going to serve 2 for your viewing pleasure. The other 2 I can sort out later. And you want to serve your duck so it's still pink in the centre. That is served as cooked beautifully. So I'm just going to pop that onto there. And there we have it. Roasted duck breast on a parsnip mash with a red pepper and garlic sauce and a side of delicious leeks. So really hope you enjoy that recipe and I look forward to seeing you back here for the next one. See you next time.